Russian authorities are pursuing yet another criminal charge against jailed opposition politician Alexei Navalny. His lawyer says Navalny was provoked into breaking the rules of the maximum security penal colony where he is being held. Adding to that are concerns for his health. Supporters of Navalny say he is in critical condition with severe stomach pain, and they suspect that he may have been poisoned yet again. Vladimir Milov is a Russian opposition politician and an advisor to Alexei Navalny. He also previously served as Russian Deputy Minister of Energy. Vladimir Milov, I wonder what's the latest news you have on Mr. Navalny's condition?
Hello, and the first thing is that there is scarce information coming out of the prison where Navalny is being held. In the past weeks and months, communications with him were severely cut, so we have only limited knowledge from his attorneys. And today, Vadim Kobzev, one of his attorneys, had reported about some critical situation which never occurred before. Navalny was beaten up and physical violence was used against him. You know, the prison guards, they are doing the same trick all over again. They put a person with serious personal hygiene problems into his small cell. And Navalny was complaining about this for the time being, and he refused to go in. So they used force and beat him up, and a new criminal case for resisting the orders was opened against him. So this is just fresh information coming in. Before that, we know that there's been some issues with his health condition. Ambulance have been called for him in prison. And generally, the problem is that he's not really allowed to undergo high-quality medical testing. And we are very much afraid about the residual effects of the poisoning because, frankly speaking, there have not been many people surviving the Novichok poisoning before.
Right.
So we believe that there must be some serious residual effects and he should undergo a regular high-quality medical test, but he's not allowed that. So there are multiple problems, which is why me and my colleagues, we try our best to keep this issue within the, under the radar of international community so it receives sufficient international attention.
There has been some suggestion that he may be continuing to be poisoned, that he may be being slowly poisoned to death. What do you take from those reports and those suggestions?
We know, and he reports, that he has been given some medications there in prison, exact nature of which is not completely understood. And full information about this is not being disclosed by the prison personnel. So yes, definitely there are such concerns, and his attorneys have been expressing these concerns based on examining his condition evolving over time. So that is, I mean, the biggest question right here is that his communication, Navalny's communication with the outside world is severely cut. Mm-hmm. He's not allowed to undergo normal independent medical tests. So we don't know, and there are obviously reasons to suspect that because he was given some medications of unknown nature.
You know, while Mr. Navalny continues his battles inside that cell, the battle for Ukraine is continuing. I wonder, sir, what are your sources in Russia telling you about the actual impact that Western sanctions are having on Russia's economy?
Western sanctions are having very, very serious impact. I mean, there's not even a day, not even a minute coming without some serious problems being reported. And the key issue right now is a fiscal crisis, which was caused by oil embargo introduced by the European Union and by voluntary cutoff of gas supplies by Gazprom to the European markets last year. Ministry of Finance reported that in the first quarter of this year, oil and gas revenues of the federal budget have dropped 45% year on year. And at the same time, expenses have been growing primarily because of the need to finance the military. So on the 12th of April, that's the latest reporting date so far, the Russian federal budget deficit exceeded planned deficit for this year, the whole annual deficit, by 15%. So, and right. This is just a little over than 3 months passed since 1st of January. So government has very strong difficulty financing everything, social spending, infrastructure spending, economy, military, and it's running scarce of the money. It is visible across sectors because private investment is dead. Companies are leaving Russia, and Chinese and Indian investors are not arriving in their place, which is a very important development. No new incoming investment. So everything depends on the government's ability to finance practically everything. And the government is running scarce of money because of the oil embargo and sanctions and so on. So I think this fiscal pressure will be the key development to watch this year.
That's an interesting take, because there's been a lot of criticism in the West that maybe the sanctions haven't been as effective as politicians here like to say, because Russia has diverted a lot of trade to China and India in terms of like finding markets for oil, for example. But you seem to think that because there's no investment flowing back in other than buying of commodities, the sanctions are having the effect Western leaders had hoped for and is affecting the ability to finance the war. Is that how you see it?
Most definitely, and really it takes patience because the effects of sanctions is progressing over time. So many people have really been impatient last year in the first months of the war when we had a relatively good parameters, indicators after the first quarter of 2022, where economy was largely untouched by sanctions. Then basically many sanctions had waivers respecting the existing contracts. So they actually came into effect basically last fall. But many people started already whining, saying that no, there is no effect, sanctions are not working and so on. Over time, we see these voices receding because there are major indicators that are showing that Russian economy is in real trouble. Like everywhere you look, consumer purchasing power significantly down. Like retail market is down nearly 10% at the last reported date in the first 2 months of this year. Inflation is picking up again, and it's significantly higher than in the Western world. Ruble began to devaluate again after some strengthening last year. Manufacturing industry is in trouble. Extractive industry is also in trouble after the oil embargo and coal embargo cut off of gas supplies. I mean, I can continue. What is important is that Russia was not able to find same level of partnership with Asian countries as it enjoyed for more than 30 years with the West. Asia is not interested to be financial donor, technology donor, donor of skills and everything. They're just giving us like life support, mostly buying Russian cheap mineral resources with huge discounts, but that is it. So there's a fundamental difference you have here.
Yeah, they're bargain shopping for commodities. So I wonder, when you look at that financial situation that exists within Russia and the pressure that they're facing because of these sanctions, but you look at what we've seen in the intelligence leaks here in the West, where the U.S. is worried about Ukraine's ability to mount a spring counteroffensive effectively, the dire straits potentially of the air defense systems in Ukraine, and also the pessimism about the possibility of any kind of a peace process, at least in 2023. What's your sense from the Russian perspective of where you see the war going from here?
I think we all in a free world, we need to be patient because many people want immediate result, like a now or never moment with Ukrainian counteroffensive and so on. We need to understand that Putin still has some resources to continue fighting for a long time, but his resources are wearing out. And actually, if you look at what happens with the battlefield, you can see that the front line of Russian offensive was not that big. It was mostly limited to a few places like Bakhmut or Avdiivka. You can read reports and see a lot of wrangling between the Ministry of Defense and the Wagner mercenary group about artillery hunger, basically the lack of artillery shells. And this is all. I mean, this is the direct result of the deficit of money to finance the war. And here sanctions are playing a critical role. The deficit will be bigger over the next months and probably years, when the fiscal crisis would really take a toll, and if Ukraine will successfully perform its counteroffensive on a large front, Putin will need many more resources, which he doesn't have at the moment. And here is where also sanctions are coming into play big time, because all of that sort of scarcity in the supplies, ammunition, and the weapons that is a result, a significant result of Western sanctions, and they are really restricting Putin's ability to wage a full-scale war.
Vladimir Milov, thank you again for your time and your insight. Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.